Every year, needless cutter accidents cause operator injuries, many quite serious. In most cases, someone might have been able to prevent the injuries. As a careful operator, there's a lot you can do to prevent injury. One of the most important things is learning how and why many cutter-related injuries happen. Paper cutters have changed a great deal over the years. By applying new technology, manufacturers have improved the safety of their machines. Cutters like this old mechanically driven flywheel model, state-of-the-art machinery at the time it was manufactured, have become obsolete in comparison to today's highly advanced cutters with their sophisticated and computerized operating and safety features. Old or new, all cutters have one thing in common. They cut with tremendous force. And not even today's state-of-the-art technology can guarantee absolute safety. The absolutely safe paper cutter hasn't been invented. Since all paper cutters are potentially hazardous, careful attention to safe operating procedures is your best defense against possible injury. Older machines, particularly mechanically driven cutters, are more likely to pose a hazard. Some manufacturers have stopped making them. Many outdated machines are still being used. Badly worn parts, inadequate maintenance, absence of the latest safety features, and improper changes or modifications all contribute to the dangers of operating old cutters. Depending on age, model, safeguarding features, and the general operating conditions of your paper cutter, special precautions may be required. Consider some of the main causes of paper cutter-related injuries. Usually, a number of factors contribute to injuries involving the operator, including the machine and the workplace. Here are the major reasons for paper cutter-related injuries. 1. Injuries involve both experienced and inexperienced operators. Inexperienced operators receive injuries because they are unfamiliar with safe operating procedures and machine operations. Experienced operators suffer injuries because they are often overconfident and therefore careless. 2. Injuries are also caused from inadequate machine maintenance. 3. Injuries occur where there are no specific safety rules. 4. Injuries are more common when machines are more than 15 years old. 5. Injuries happen when two operators are working on the same cutter. 6. Injuries involve unsafe acts by operators, including attempts to circumvent or get around safeguarding devices. It would be a good idea for you to make notes throughout this program, which you can review later. And you should view this program again periodically to refresh your memory. The first important step in paper cutter safety is to know your machine. You should never touch or attempt to operate a paper cutter unless you have been thoroughly trained. Instructions for operating your cutter are included in the instruction manual that came with your machine. Before beginning operation, you should carefully read your cutter's instruction manual. You should also know who manufactured the cutter, how old it is the knife mechanically, electrically, or hydraulically driven? Are all the safeguarding devices and controls indicated in the manual on the machine? Have any modifications been made, particularly to safeguarding devices or controls? If modifications have been made and are not explained in your manual, call the cutter manufacturer immediately. The modifications may not allow for safe cutting operations. These may seem like questions that have little to do with cutter operation. If you don't know the answers, however, you may not know enough about the cutter to operate it safely. If your cutter is an older model, you should contact the manufacturer to obtain any bulletins or manual updates that may have been issued since your cutter was manufactured. If your cutter is old or was purchased second-hand, the manufacturer may not be aware that you own it and won't be able to send you any new information. Has your cutter been properly maintained according to the manufacturer's instructions? If not, or if you're not certain, have a qualified technician thoroughly inspect your cutter. Always wire a paper cutter to electric power through a quick disconnect electrical box. The box must be equipped with a ring that allows a padlock to be used to lock out power to the machine. When any machine maintenance or adjustment is performed, the electrical power to the machine must be shut off and locked off at the wall. Regulations and good safety practices demand this procedure always be used. Under normal operating conditions, the useful life of the average paper cutter ranges from 10 to 15 years. Cutters that have been in service for 15 years are at or beyond their expected service life and should be replaced with newer models. Abnormal operation may reduce a cutter's useful life by many years. Lack of proper maintenance may also reduce its useful life by years. As we all know, age wears out any machine. Very careful attention should be paid to maintenance to ensure the machine is in proper working order. Your safety depends on it. Beyond the important consideration of safety, today's advanced paper cutters offer much higher productivity than older machines. Many critical parts on machines older than 10 years, particularly parts on non-hydraulically driven cutters, may visibly appear to be in good condition. However, they may actually be on the verge of failure. While performing maintenance may not be your job, your safety depends on how well others maintain the cutter for you. As the operator, you have the final responsibility for cutter safety. If you're not certain the machine is in good, safe operating condition, don't turn it on. It's not possible to talk about every type of cutter and every type of hazard in this program. We'll review some of the main causes of cutter-related injuries to help you become familiar with them and to help you avoid becoming an injury statistic. The knife and clamp can cause many injuries. For the knife to cut materials, it's kept extremely sharp and can cause serious injury. The clamp is designed to securely position and hold materials in place while the knife cuts. It too can cause serious injury. Remember, your safety depends on proper operation of the cutter, including making sure your hands are always free of the knife and clamp area. This means for safety, you should never, under any circumstances, place hands, fingers, or other parts of your body under the knife or clamp. Many new machines with automatic or computer-controlled back gauges will push the lift out for you, removing any need to put your hands under the knife and clamp. Again, there's never a safe time to place hands or any body parts under clamp and knife. Cutter safety stock joggers are a helpful way to align your stock without the need of putting your hands under the knife and clamp. An anti-repeat device stops the knife and clamp after a cycle. If your cutter has this feature, check your instruction manual to find out what type. If you observe that the knife or knife and clamp continue a downward movement after completing one cutting cycle, stop the cutter at once and take the machine out of service until it can be properly repaired or replaced. Under no circumstances should you operate a cutter with an anti-repeat device that has failed. Knife over travel is another hazard to look for on paper cutters. The knife should never come to rest below the bottom of the clamp. If it does, it may be over traveling, a severe hazard. This indicates that the clutch or braking mechanism may be out of adjustment, or they may be on the verge of complete failure. If over travel occurs on a mechanically driven cutter, the knife is often stopped and held only by the safety shot or latch pin, which is a backup safety feature, not a primary safeguard. If you experience over travel, stop the cutter at once. Do not operate the cutter until it is properly repaired or adjusted. The knife could move downward without warning, causing sudden and serious injury. Of course, these dangers will be avoided by keeping your hands out of the knife and clamp area during actual operation. Knife bolt holes have also caused injury to cutter operators. Fingers, which should never be near the knife, have been caught in bolt holes during the cutting cycle and seriously injured. A cutter should not be operated if all knife bolts are not in place. It's a good idea to check your manual to locate all machine guards, which are designed to protect you from moving parts other than the knife and clamp. On many models, the guards are removable. Sometimes they are not replaced after maintenance or repair work. If any guards are missing, replace them before operating the cutter. Your manual will help you determine whether any have been removed. The clamp is another known cause of injury to cutter operators. Clamp pressure, when controlled with the foot pedal or treadle, is adjustable on many machines. Because of the serious crush hazard, the clamp should operate with low pressure when controlled by the foot treadle. In other words, if your hands are free to inadvertently enter the clamp area when the clamp is foot treadle controlled, low clamp pressure may reduce the severity of injury to your hands or fingers if an accident occurs. However, you should always keep your hands clear of the knife clamp area. Fingers can be caught by the clamp and drawn up towards the knife, another potentially serious hazard. If the clamp does not operate with low pressure when foot controlled, the cutter should be converted to low pressure operation immediately before further use. Federal regulations require two-hand operation of both the knife and clamp. Be aware that if your cutter is not adjusted for low speed or low pressure treadle operation, it needs to be brought up to code. Check with the cutter manufacturer for this important information. Some older machines have exposed treadles. This presents another serious hazard. The treadle should be covered by a hood to prevent accidental operation of the clamp. Regulations require it. Cutter controls have significantly evolved over the years. Early single-lever machines were eventually replaced by double-lever models. These were replaced in time by two-hand start, one-hand hold control systems. New controls are equipped with two-hand start, two-hand hold mechanisms, also called constant pressure controls. These mechanisms require both hands to be in contact with the controls during the entire cutting cycle. If one hand is removed, the knife either immediately stops its downward travel or stops and returns to the up position. Unfortunately, there are reports that paper cutters with obsolete and unsafe controls are still in use, including single-lever machines. Cutters which do not require both hands to be away from the knife and clamp area during a cutting cycle are extremely hazardous and should never be operated. Federal regulations require all paper cutters to be equipped with two-hand constant pressure controls. Pressure for constant production often tempts experienced cutter operators to modify their machines. They feel that two-hand controls slow them down, particularly if they're working on an incentive pay basis. It's known that some two-hand control systems have been modified by operators to permit one hand to be free during the cutting cycle. Machines which permit one-hand freedom during cutting are a leading cause of serious personal injuries. They also violate federal regulations. Don't ever be in such a hurry that you don't work safely. Even experienced operators can be distracted or forget safe practices. Two-hand constant pressure controls will help prevent your paying the high price of fingers or a hand because of a simple, unnecessary mistake. Never attempt to disconnect or get around the two-hand controls, ever. Do not permit anyone to rewire the controls to alter the two-hand constant pressure requirement. And never operate a cutter in which two-hand controls have been modified or circumvented. No more than one person should be permitted in the cutter work area while the cutter is being operated. If you are operating a cutter and someone needs to speak to you or requires your attention, stop operations. Do not let anything distract you while you are operating a paper cutter. This is a powerful machine that requires your complete attention. Another procedure that causes operator injury is knife changing. Consult your cutter instruction manual to learn the manufacturer's recommended method of knife changing. Cutters made by different manufacturers may require different knife handling and changing methods. The fact that you are familiar with knife changing on one type of cutter doesn't mean that you know how to do the same thing safely on another machine. Read the manual carefully. If you have any questions, call the manufacturer of your cutter. Their customer service department will answer your questions. Workplace conditions play an important part in safe cutter operation. Just as machine maintenance is important to safety, Work area maintenance is also important. Before operating the cutter, follow these steps. 1. Be sure all trim, debris, tools, and foreign objects are cleared away from the cutter table. Never lay tools under the clamp or knife. 2. Check the floor to be sure it is free of trim, debris, grease, and oils. Anything that could cause you to slip or lose your balance during operation of the cutter is a definite hazard. 3. Before turning your cutter on, make sure your safety glasses are snug. 4. Make sure no guards are missing from the machine. 5. Keep others away from the work area when the cutter is in operation. 6. Keep your instruction manual in a handy place near the cutter for quick reference. 7. Never leave your cutter, not even for a moment, when it is on. Turn the power off whenever you walk away from the work area. 8. Make sure that you and anyone else who may operate the cutter understand all safety rules and procedures. It's a good idea to post them in the work area if possible. 9. Do not allow others to tamper with controls or any part of the cutter. Major repairs or approved modifications should only be made by a qualified service technician. A final word. If your cutter begins to make unusual sounds or operates abnormally, turn it off and check your manual. If you can't identify and easily correct the problem, call the cutter manufacturer's customer service department before you continue cutter operation. If paper cutters are not properly maintained, they can cause injury. Every year, people are seriously injured while operating paper cutters. Injuries don't have to happen. It's up to you, the operator, to prevent them. Because of the variety of paper cutters in service today, we can't review every possible cutter hazard. Every machine is different. That's why it's so important that you know your cutter and its operator's manual. Remember, if you have a used machine, do not operate it until you have had it checked out by the manufacturer. If you think your actions through carefully, use common sense, and operate the cutter as though it could fail at any moment, you'll have a better chance of injury-free operation. Don't depend on your paper cutter to protect you from injury. Depend on yourself. Day-to-day safe cutting operations are up to you.